Welcome to the third webinar in our 3-webinar series on using Adobe FrameMaker for authoring. My name is Barb Binder, and I'm the owner of Rocky Mountain Training. We are a training company that delivers training classes on the Adobe Technical Communication Suite, as well as the Adobe Creative Cloud applications. These are the programs that I'm responsible for, and of course, FrameMaker is listed down there on the bottom right. I am an Adobe certified instructor and have been since 1997. I also volunteer my time as an Adobe community expert on the Adobe FrameMaker forums. I may have met you in class before because I've been training on FrameMaker for 30 years, or maybe I've answered a question for you on the forums. But if not, good to meet you. I'm glad to be here. I do want to leave you with some information about how to stay in touch if you want to do so. My email is up here on this screen. My website is Rocky Mountain Training. We do offer training classes, as I said, also on FrameMaker. I have a 2-day intro and a 2-day advanced class. You may have run across my blog when you are looking for an answer to a FrameMaker question. I've been answering student questions online since 2009. So perhaps you have come across that before. And as I said, I do volunteer in the community forums. You're welcome to go to the FrameMaker forum and ask us any questions. You'll usually get the quickest answer if you have a quick question or even a hard question on the forums versus reaching out to me directly, because there's a lot of us who answer questions there. And if I'm in class training, I can't answer questions during the day. But definitely check out those forums. If there's something you want to follow up about, something I've discussed in this webinar series, you can definitely reach out to me directly. And if you're not aware of the Society for Technical Communication, I do want you to know that that's here as well. That's a great place to go to find other technical writers and network with them and continue your learning. Okay, so the plan for today is to talk about using FrameMaker with books. I want to talk about what user files are. I'd like to talk about what generated files are, explain the rules for working with generated files so you understand how that's going to work. I'd also like to talk a little bit about hyperlinks and exporting to PDF. Now, all 3 of these sessions are full of information. The feedback we've been getting is that there's a lot in there, but for most people, it seems best when they go back and watch it a second time. So do understand that these sessions are being recorded. They're available on YouTube after they're completed. So the first 2 sessions are already available online. This one will be available in a couple of days. If you miss something, you can ask a question via the chat while we're watching the video. You could also just plan on watching the session a second time. And when you're watching it, you can watch it at your own pace. You can start and stop, and you can rewind. You can skip sections, whatever you need to do. But I do have a lot to talk about, so I am going to be working at a pretty good clip. Just know that before we start. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about FrameMaker and how we work with books in FrameMaker. I want to point out that I am recording this session in the newest version of Adobe FrameMaker. This is version 17, or the fall release of 2022. The welcome screen looks different from earlier versions, but once I get past the welcome screen, what I'm going to be talking about is appropriate for all versions of FrameMaker. But let's get a quick look at the welcome screen since it's here. The new redesigned welcome screen has the same components it had before. They're just in different places. Pretty easy to find if you look around. The biggest change is that the recently opened files are now in the middle. I can scroll through them here. They used to be listed on the left-hand side. The other change that's worth pointing out is there's now a Learn button. This is going to make the FrameMaker welcome screen look more like the Adobe Creative Cloud welcome screens, where you access frequently used files and presets, as well as access the FrameMaker resources that Adobe is offering you for free. You'll see links for webinars and tutorials and the user guide and demo videos. You can come in here and learn more about FrameMaker when you have some downtime. For now, though, I'm going to go back to the home screen, and I'm going to go ahead and locate the file called General Description, and I'm going to click to open it up. If you were in my previous 2 webinars, you'll recognize this because I use the exact same file in those 2 webinars. This is a file that I found in the templates that come with FrameMaker. It's in the user guide template group, and it's called Chapter. I did redesign it a bit. I just simplified the headers and the footers and changed the chapter title and changed the colors. Other than that, it's the same file, so you'll recognize it if you go look for it. This is considered a user-created file because the user is in charge of this file. I can add anything I want. I can add text. I can take it away. It's a user-created file. And that's differentiating it from a FrameMaker generated file, which I'll be talking about shortly. Now, there are two more things in here I want to point out to you. One is the use of cross-references. These three bullets are cross-references, and if I double-click on a cross-reference, click, that will open up the cross-reference panel. That's a backdoor to get in. If you didn't know that, that's a tip. And then in the top right corner is the hyperlink button. It says Go to Source. When I click on Go to Source, I'm going to hyperlink to the actual source of that cross-reference. So I can see if that's correct and I can follow that link. I'm bringing this up because we're going to be talking about creating PDFs at the end of this webinar. And I'm going to point out how the hyperlinks work. So I want you to see that the cross-reference is an automatic hyperlink. If you do a lot with hyperlinks, you might already know this shortcut. When you hold Control and Alt, you'll get a little pointing finger. You can click on the cross-reference, and that will hyperlink without having to open up that cross-reference panel. Same feature, just a shortcut. Now, you also can work with manual hyperlinks. And manual hyperlinks are links that are not built into your documentation. You have to add them. So you can see I've got a URL here that goes to the NASA website. I've already gone ahead and added a marker, and let me show that to you. Here's my marker box. I'm going to open up the marker box. I'm going to double click on the word with a marker, and it shows me that this is a hypertext marker, and it's using message URL, and then it has the web address. Now, I realized it opened up in the marker box. I guess I just did that, didn't I? I meant to open up the hypertext box. Hypertext markers are just a variation of the marker box. Years ago, they were in the same place. They've separated now, but what I should have done there was open up the hypertext box to show it to you here. The advantage of the hypertext marker box, even though they both recognize them, is that the hypertext marker box actually has a drop-down list, and you can pick what you want from the list. If you're doing it through the marker box, you have to have them in your head, and sometimes we don't carry all of the syntax variations in our heads. Okay, anyway, I added this. This was not part of regular FrameMaker features. You can add these in where you think they need to be. This is a manual hyperlink. Okay, so let me go back to Fit Page and Window View. And I'm going to go back to page 1. And I've got several other chapters that have been created by a user like me, and I want to put them into a book. So the way we do that is we go to the File menu, New, and then Book. File, New, Book. Because this file is open, FrameMaker is asking if we want to add this file to the book, and I do. So I'll say yes, I want to add it to the book. It's now over here in my book window. Now, before I get distracted, I want to save my book. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to pick Save Book, and I'm going to type in the name Flight, F-L-I-G-H-T, and I'm going to save it. So I've got two things on my screen open right now. I've got my Flight book open on the left, and I have my document window on the right. As you start working with books for the first time, you need to learn to be vigilant about noticing where your cursor is. Here's an easy example to see. If you watch my paragraph catalog over here, if I'm in the document, I have access to my styles. If I'm in my book, I don't. That's pretty obvious. You can see that list coming and going. You can see it out of the corner of your eye if you're not even looking at it. But there are more subtle differences that might take longer for you to recognize. The menus themselves change, and what they offer is going to change. So if I'm in the document, I get the standard document menus, including the insert menu that lets me insert images and multimedia and anchored frames. I also have the format menu, including character and paragraph level formatting. But if I click in my document, I not only have different menus up here, the menus that are still there have changed. Now my insert menu says, how about inserting files and folders and groups? And the format menu doesn't offer me character or paragraph level formatting. That's done at the document level. I'm now working at the book level. This is all controlled by where your cursor is active. If you're in the book window or the document window or the book window, you just have to pay attention there. Okay, so I want to add some more chapters to my book, and I'm going to do that by going to the Insert button. I can either use this Add File button right here, or I can go up to the Insert command, Insert Files. Either one, they do the same thing. And then I'm going to pick the files that I want to add in here. I know I want contacts, but the other files are non-consecutive. They're not right underneath it. So I'm going to have to hold the Control key so I can grab legal and operating limitations and systems. I've selected 4 files to add in my book. When I click Add, they have been added to my book. The order in which I choose them from the dialog box doesn't matter at all, but the order in which they appear here does. I want these to be listed in the print order or the presentation order. And in this particular situation, I want the legal file to be at the top. Now I can move it up by pressing and dragging it up, or I can put it back, and I can move it with these blue arrows. Doesn't matter, it does the same thing. I want to make sure I have legal, general descriptions, systems is going to come after that one, and then contacts is at the bottom. That's the correct order. And I've got a little save button here to save my book. I'll go ahead and save it. So I've got those all saved now. One of the features I really like about the book window is the ability to control the display of that list. Currently, I'm looking at this as file name, so I can see the .fm extension. But if I find this button right over here, which says display heading text, I can click it and I can change it so that it displays the first paragraph of all 5 of those chapters. If I click it again, it goes back to file names. If I click it again, it goes back to the heading text. And the reason I like it so much is without even opening up the other files, I know I've got some problems in them. All those files think they're chapter 1, and all those files, can you see down here where the page numbers appear, think they start on page 1. Now I can see the chapters in the list because they're one under the other, but to see what the page numbers are really doing, I'm going to click on my first file and then shift click on my last file so they're all selected, click, shift, click. And now I can look at the bottom of my book window and I can see that all of those files are in Arabic numerals and they're all starting at 1. And that's not the plan I have for this document. Now, I do not need to open them to change them, but I can, and I want to show you a shortcut, so I'm going to. What I'm going to do is hold my Shift key and open the File menu. In the book window, if you're holding down the Shift key before you click File, you can open all the files in your book. And I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to open all the files in my book right now, and all the book files open. The Shift key also gives me access to save all files in book. If any of them have been changed, I can save the files. And Shift File lets me close all files in the book. Those 3 commands are available if you're in the book window and if you're holding the Shift key before you click File. I love those commands. All right. So let's talk about numbering. I'm going to go ahead and open up the legal file. Here it is right here. And I want this one to be part of the front matter. So I want to number it with lowercase Roman numerals. I'm going to right click it and choose numbering. And then I want to show you numbering properties. Numbering properties needs some attention when you come in here every single time because it has a number of tabs across the top that all look visually very similar. If you're not paying attention, you might think you're in one of the tabs and actually be in another one. It's not going to work correctly. So in this document, I'm trying to number pages. I need to make sure I have pages selected. And all I want to do for now is change the numbering format to lowercase Roman. And I'm going to pick Set. When I do that and I show you page 2, you can see I'm using lowercase Roman. I do have the page number hidden on page 1, but it's reflected down here. So you can see it's page 1 and it also shows in the book window as page I through II. Now, for the first chapter in the body of my document, I want that to be page 1 in chapter 1. It already is because that's the default, but let me just go look at it with you. I'm going to right-click it again and choose numbering. And I'm going to start with the chapter tab at the top. I want to make sure it says chapter 1, format numeric, which means Arabic numerals. Then I want to check the page numbering. Make sure it says first page is 1, format is numeric. This is great. I'm not changing it. I'm going to cancel. The other chapters, however, I think need to increment from that point. And so what I typically do in my documentation is I click the next chapter, chapter 2. and I shift click the last chapter. Whether there are 3 chapters or 30, I can click the first one and I can shift click the last one, and I can select all the rest of the chapters all at one time. Once they're selected, I can change them all at once by right-clicking and choosing numbering. And what I want to do here is start with chapter numbering. I want my chapters to continue numbering from the previous chapter. So they'll go 1, 2, 3. And I want my pages to continue numbering from the previous chapters. I need to turn both of those on. So I've got page number set to continue numbering. I've got chapter set to continue numbering. When I pick set, FrameMaker is going to run through those chapters and update all that information. Now, again, I don't have to have the files open. I can see all this work just in the book window alone. So in my book window, because I'm showing my headings, I can see each of the numbers now say 1, 2, 3. And if I look at the bottom of my book window with my files selected, you can see that I have them numbered Roman numerals I through II, comma, 1 through 20. So all those have been modified. I'm going to hold my Shift key and I'm going to save all the files in the book to make sure they all keep that in case something bad happens, and I'm good to go. Now I want to show them to you here. General description is chapter 1, page 1. Operating limitations says it's chapter 2, and systems now shows it to be chapter 3. But I didn't have to have them open. I can manage it right from here. My documents tend to have more chapters than other people's seem to. I need to keep an eye on that list because there's too many for me to keep in my head. So I think that's really helpful. Now, once I get my documents numbered correctly, the next thing that I want to do is add a table of contents. And FrameMaker will add a table of contents for us if we just ask it to. We don't have to type it up ourselves. It can type it much more quickly than we can and much more accurately. A table of contents is the first of many different generated files you can work with. A generated file is a file that FrameMaker generates for you, and the generated files follow certain rules that you need to be aware of. My observation from years of teaching is that my students who understand the rules of the generated files and who follow the rules love them, and the ones who don't know the rules or don't follow them find it to be a nightmare situation. So let's go over how to do this correctly, and I'll establish the rules while we're doing it. The first thing I want you to know about a generated file is they're not in here yet. I'm going to add it in just a minute. But when you add a generated file, it's going to copy the initial formatting from the first non-generated file in the book window. So if I go over here and I double-click legal, I'll bring it forward. And when you're looking at this file from here, you can see the paper size, the margins, the columns, the footer. There's another page here which has a header. FrameMaker is going to copy all of that to the new generated file, but it goes beyond just that. It's also going to copy information from the catalogs into the new file. It's going to copy information from the master pages and the reference pages, and those two are going to come into play in this exercise as well as my catalog. There are some styles in here I'm going to need to use that are just in my catalog waiting. There's an index heading and a table of contents heading waiting for me to use them in a little bit. But first, I want to show you two things. I'm going to go to the master pages and I want to show you my running header footer one. When I double click it, I can show you that this is a pretty advanced version of a running header footer one. Now, unfortunately, I can only make this column so wide, so I can't show you everything it's doing. I'm going to have to click on my pencil button to edit it, and then I can show you what's happening. It's using the standard paratext and then style name in here. But rather than listing just a single style name, it has a cascading list of styles. So what it says is, FrameMaker, go find the paragraph text of anything assigned a heading 0. If you find it, put it in the footer. But if you don't find it, that's what the comma says, look for anything that's got the context style assigned and put that in the footer. Can't find that? Look for the legal style, put that in the footer. Can't find that? Look for the table of contents heading, put that in the footer. Can't find that? Look for the index heading and put that in the footer. And think about this for a second. That lets you have one running header footer one definition that can work anywhere in your document, in the front matter, in the body, in the back matter, because it's going to cascade down and look for whatever it shows up in the document. Now, I can't imagine why you'd have more than one in there. You wouldn't have, table of contents and index heading in the same file. They're always separate files. But if you do have more than one in there, it's going to match the first one and then stop. So this is really cool because as soon as I assign my headings in my two generated files, the text is going to automatically appear in the footer because of the way this is set up. So that's cool. That's going to get copied forward. And then I also want to show you the reference pages. This legal document has master page mapping tables. I discussed that in an earlier webinar. Going to happen here is if it finds any of those same 5 styles and I tell it to apply the master pages, it's going to apply the first master page automatically. That's cool. That's going to get copied to the generated files. And here's just a basic reference page. But then there's also 2 specific reference pages in here. There's a table of contents reference page, and there's also an index reference page. So table of contents and index. And these have some initial formatting that I am tweaking because I don't have a lot of time with you. When I teach this in my classes, I can spend several hours on table of contents and index and other generated files. But in this class, I've got just an hour. So I've already done some basic formatting in here. You can see I've chosen fonts and colors. They're going to appear that way when I make the table of contents for the first time. Unless you've done that, yours is going to need you to pick the typeface and size and style and color and alignment, as well as the other things I'm going to talk about. I know you all know how to use Paragraph Designer by now, so I just got a head start on Paragraph Design. Okay, so all this is going to get copied forward because, let me go back to the body pages. So view body pages. The first rule of generated files is that the generated files copy their formatting from the first non-generated file in the book window. Legal is really important because that's the file it's going to look at to copy from. It doesn't care about these files. Doesn't matter what they look like. This is the one that matters. So that's the first thing you want to know. The second thing I want you to know about generated files is they do have a predictable file name. They always use the name of the book minus flight, and then the suffix that goes with that file. So the suffix for a table of contents is TOC. When I add my table of contents, it's going to be called flight toc.fm. And here's how you add it. You figure out where you want it to go. I want to put it above legal. And then you go to the insert menu and you head down to the bottom looking for a command that says something about making a table of contents. These words vary from version to version, but they're pretty obvious. You can figure it out. In 2022, it says create TOC. So I'll click create TOC. And then all versions give you the same dialog box. What you can see is that it tells you the suffix for that file, which is TOC. That's what's appearing in that file name. So book name plus the suffix is the name of the generated file. I'd like you also to observe the difference in the color icons here. Generated file, which follows all these rules I'm establishing, has an orange and black icon. The user files have an orange and white icon. So you want to keep an eye on the generated files. They're the ones that update when you update your book. Well, all can update, but they completely update when you update your book. And they're the ones that require that you follow these set of rules. Okay, so what I need to do is tell FrameMaker what I want to put in my table of contents. And this is based on the styles in my paragraph catalog. What I need to do is look through my document and figure out what words I want to include in a table of contents. For example, let's say I want the word legal to be in my table of contents. Well, if I want that, I have to go through this list until I figure out what style is controlling that heading in my document. It's called legal. And so I want that. I can either click it once and click the arrow, or I can double click it and put it in the include list. This document also has a file that's called contacts, and I know these files, so I know I need the style called contacts. I'll put that in here. And then my basic chapters in the middle are going to have heading 0 and heading 1 and heading 2 and heading 3. I'm going to go ahead and choose the first 3 levels of headings. So I'll scroll up and I'll find heading 0, heading 1, heading 2. These are called 0, 1, and 2 for the top level, second level, and third level headings, because that's how the template was named. And I put them all in here. And if I pick OK, FrameMaker is going to type all that up for me. Now, I'm a big fan of a short table of contents. It doesn't always fly with clients, but I would prefer to have a short table of contents so you can quickly find what you're looking for and go. I'm not going to include the third level headings, so I'm going to go ahead and double click this heading 2 and push it back over. And what I want FrameMaker to do is locate anything that has a style of heading 0, heading 1, contacts and legal, and type it up in a new file for me. I'm going to put it in this file right here called flight.toc.fm. I'm going to click create, and way quicker than I can type, FrameMaker is going to type all that information into a file. Now, if you're watching my screen closely, you'll probably see it flash by, and then it's going to disappear. I just saw it, and now it's gone. And the reason I can't see it is because I have these other files open, and they're docked, and it goes behind those files. So it's there, it's open, but I can't see it. So the trick that I use is I just go over to my book window, and I can see that there's some information here. It says legal I. I'm going to double click it, and that's going to bring it forward where I can see it. I do want to dock it or I'm going to lose it again. And there's two ways to dock. I can either press and drag it up to the tab bar like that. I'm going to undock it. Or I can go to the window menu and I can choose consolidate. Either one is going to take care of it. Consolidate is great if you have lots of undocked windows, lots of floating windows. Now, it docked it in front of my welcome screen. I'm just going to drag it over here. And I'm going to drag this one over here. And what I'm doing right now is not important, in my opinion, that I'm setting my tabs up in a certain order. But for a lot of my students, they like their tabs in the order in which they appear in the book window. And so they ask me how to move them. So that's how you do it. You just drag them side to side. And what you can see now is I have a relatively raw table of contents file. It does have some initial formatting done. As I said, I did that in advance in the legal chapter. All I did was I set the typeface and size and style and color at inline spacing. But this is going to look very much like what you're going to get if you do this for the very first time, although everything will just be black. And I want to show you now how you can modify it. So the first thing I'm going to do is enable the side head format, which came in but didn't get enabled. So I've got my cursor here. I'm going to go to the format menu, customize layout, customize text frame. And I'm just going to enable the side heads because that's on in the other file. So it brought the information in. It knows what size to make them. I'm going to click apply. And so now I've got the side head format. And then I want to go to the very beginning of the document, double clicking to, am I double clicking? Now I am. It's on the wrong side of the trackpad. I want to add the table of contents title. So I'm going to type table of contents, harder than it looks, and press enter. And then I'm going to select it. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard here. Now I'm doing that because I'm going to update my book. And if you look at my book window right now, you'll see it still says legal I because when this file was created, that was the first paragraph in the document. I think it should say table of contents. And so I'm going to update my book so that it does that and watch what happens. I update my book. Okay. And I've lost the word table of contents. And here's the next rule of generated files. You're not supposed to type in a generated file. Because if you type in a generated file and you update your book, you will lose the content that you've added. So if I see a typo down here and I fix it and I update my book, it's going to come right back. Because these typos, if there are any in here, are coming out of the source documents. FrameMaker grabbed this information from these files up here. And whenever I update my book, it's going to read these files again and see if there's anything different and collect it. So I really can't change anything on this page. However, I still want a title. And so FrameMaker gives us an exception for the title. We can add a title if it's the first thing in the document and if the style doesn't end in the suffix for that file. I'm going to type in table of contents again. Enter. And then check out this style name right here. It's using legal TOC. This is already the first thing in the document, so in theory it should stay if the style doesn't end in the suffix for that file. That's the problem. So I do have a style waiting for me called talk heading. I'm going to go ahead and click it. And when I assign talk heading, it's going to give it a new style name. And it's no longer ending with TOC, so it's going to be there after I update. Now, something else happens at the same time. That footer appeared automatically because FrameMaker, and I showed you this in the legal document, was looking for any of those 5 headings. And as soon as it found one, it puts it in the footer automatically. So that's pretty cool. Now I want to come back up here and make sure this sticks around. I'm going to go ahead and update my book and update. Is it updating? Yeah, it just updated, right? I didn't see the message go by, but I guess it did. Okay, we're good. So it updated, and it's still here because it's the first thing in the flow, and it doesn't end in the suffix for that file. So that's great. Now, what's happening down here is I want to do just some very basic formatting. I've already got the font and colors and spacing set up, but I want to talk about removing numbers and setting tabs. So keep in mind that for the most part, I'm sorry, I'm having trackpad issues here. For the most part, what happens in table of contents is you want to have page numbers. People are coming here to figure out where something is being covered. So they look at the name and they go find the page number and they go read. But there are occasions when you don't want page numbers, and they might be section heads, for example, between chapters. You might have some sections. You want to get rid of them. If I get rid of the page numbers, I'm breaking the rule I just established. When I come over here and I update my book, and I update again, those page numbers are going to come back because FrameMaker is going to skim through all those documents, type the content, and it puts the page numbers right back. So I'm really not kidding about don't type on a generated page. You really don't want to do that. The only exception is made for the titles. So I'm going to leave these numbers here for just a few minutes, and I'll come back and get rid of them shortly. And in the meantime, what I want to do is get these numbers to sit against the right margin. And that's a fairly easy process. I'm just going to set a tab stop. So I'm going to go to the paragraph designer. I'm in basic properties. I'm going to choose edit, and I want to add a tab at 5¼ inches. That's the width of that main column. I want a right align tab, and I want leader dots. When I click continue, I can pause for a second and see if I did it correctly. Yep, it says 5¼ inches, right align tab, ... I'm going to update my style, and nothing happens, which is distressing. And the reason nothing is happening is because the character that is between the 1 and the T in flight is a space. I need a tab there. And if I tab it, and I'll do a couple more, tab, also tab, you can see that my tab stops are correct, but I'm again typing on a generated page. You know what's going to happen. When I come over here and I update my book, those are going to be gone. Now, I want to tell you a very quick story. I have met people over the years who get this far in their FrameMaker table of contents knowledge, and this is as far as they get. After every book update, they add the tabs back in again. I can't imagine how angry they must feel when they're putting them in. As soon as I see it, I help them figure it out. But you don't want to stop here. You want to be able to control the formatting that you see or the presentation. When you're dealing with a generated file, next rule, the structure or the presentation of the file is controlled by a reference page. This is the table of contents document, so I've got a table of contents reference page. I'm going to go to the View menu. Oops, got to be in this document though. View menu, I'm going to come down to Reference Pages, and I'm looking for the table of contents reference page. And what I see are a series of building blocks. Up here, this is hypertext linking information, so you can just ignore this. But these are all building blocks. They all say the same thing, paratext space page num. The way you know which one does what is you have to actually click on a line, and then I'm closing this so you can see it. This is the heading 0 TOC, the top level heading. This is the heading 1 TOC. This is the legal TOC, and this is the context TOC. Now, FrameMaker has created these styles based on what I told it to get, which was heading 0s, heading 1s, legal, and contacts. It copies the content in, but it also copies the styles into this document, and it assigns the suffix to the end of the style. So they all end in TOC. That's what's happening. Now, the reason my page numbers wouldn't move is because of this space right here. If I add a tab, I'm changing what's going to happen on those body pages. That's the piece that I was describing people not understanding. You can replace that space with a tab. And if I really don't want page numbers, I can also come along and delete the page number building blocks. FrameMaker uses building blocks, and as you become more advanced, you begin to memorize what they do. I'm using currently Hypertext and PageNum, so I'm just adjusting the building blocks here. And on that note, I'm going to make a modification. I'm going to add the word chapter in front of the chapter title, and I'm going to put in one more building block, which is going to be less than $ para num only. Greater than, I want to add a colon and a, oops, that's a semicolon, colon and a space as separators. And when you're comfortable with building blocks, it's easy to come in here and modify them. When you're new, you've got to do a little research and figure it all out. But this is what I want this to look like. So I'm very happy with what I see here. I'm going to go ahead and save my file and return to my body pages. Now, here's the next rule of the generated files. Reference page changes don't take effect until you update your book. So they haven't done, nothing's happened yet. Before I update, notice I still have page numbers on the bold and blue text. I don't have tabs, and I don't have the chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3 listed here, but I've changed all that on the reference pages. So when I update and I click on update, it picks up all of those changes as it reads the reference page and regenerates. That's how that works, which is pretty cool. Now, I am going to talk about changing documents, or fixing typos, rather. Let's say I want to change this right here. You know I don't want to type on this page, right? But we talked about a shortcut, Control-Alt-Click. I'm going to Control-Alt-Click on that text. It's going to hyperlink me in. What I can do then is change some text. I'll say this is the exciting history of flight. And when I modify one of these source documents, this is a heading 1, right? I modify the source document, and I come back to my table of contents. Nothing changes yet. It still says history until I update my book. And FrameMaker is going to scan all the documents, look for any changes, grab that text, type it in here, assign the heading 1 TOC style, and it picks up and it's all formatted. And one more thing I'd like to show you on the organization here. If I decide that systems ought to be the second file, you can see it goes 1, 2, 3. Systems is third. Page numbers start with 15. If I do this at this stage of the game, seems like a big deal. It's not at all. When I update my book, FrameMaker simply looks at everything and updates it based on what it says. So systems is now going to be this chapter 2. It's got the new page numbers. Operating limitations is now chapter 3. It has those new page numbers. So very easy to handle once you follow these rules. Okay, so let's talk about indexing. Indexing is the other big generated file. Table of contents, list of paragraph, list of figures, list of tables. Those are all basically the same kind of thing. A table of contents is grabbing headings. A list of figures grabs captions. And then a list of tables grabs table titles. But it's the same feature I just showed you here. So an index is different in that it's an alphabetical listing, and it does require that you put markers in. So where a table of contents is typed in very quickly for you just by telling it what headings you want to include, there's thought that has to go into creating an index. I do want to tell you that these files are indexed. I'm working with files that already have index markers in them, and I'm going to just show you one of them. This, where it says launch and landing site, if I open up my marker box, that, oh, it says it's a hypertext link, is it? There's one. There's the index marker. There's an index marker here for landing site. Now, they're already in the document, so I'm going to be able to just generate an index, and then I'm going to come back and talk about the markers. The markers are critical. They have to be in there before you start, but I need to talk about how these work first. So I'll be back talking about markers momentarily. Okay, and let's just go add an index. So I want to add another generated file, and I want to add it under contacts. Remember that generated files are going to copy their initial formatting from legal. And so legal already has a few things to make this process go a little bit more quickly because I showed them to you earlier. So I'm going to go to insert. I'm going to come down to a standard index. Notice the suffix for the index file is IX. That's why the file name is flight, book name, plus the suffix IX. We want to include all the index markers and create hypertext links. These are, again, automatic hypertext links. Just don't uncheck it. And when we click OK, FrameMaker is running through all the documents, and it's typing up all those index markers that are in these files and putting them in alphabetical order. And they're going to show up now in FrameMaker. Now, just like the table of contents, I saw a flash by. I know it's there, but it's hiding. So I'm going to have to go over to my book window and double click to open up that document. And then I'm going to go ahead and just dock it over here. Is it there? There it is. Good. Okay. So I want to do some initial formatting. The first thing I'm going to do is add my index title. And I'm going to zoom out this time because I didn't do that last time. There is no footer down here. No footer, nothing in there. So I'm going to type in index. And I don't want to update my book right now because currently index is using a style called, where is it? Group titles IX. If that style name ends with the suffix for the generated file, FrameMaker gets to take it. I need to give it a different name. And there's one in here waiting for me called IX heading. This file, this style, just like this other one, was in that legal file. That's why they're here. Otherwise, you have to create them. And I don't see the footer yet because FrameMaker doesn't feel like it. So I'll say, hey, I'm talking to you. I'm going to just go ahead and refresh the screen. At that point, it shows up down here. And that, again, is that footer I showed you. It was a running header footer one in legal that had the cascading set of styles. Whichever one it finds first is going to go in the footer. And so there it is. So that's cool. When I update my book, and this time I'm going to go ahead and apply master pages. I do have the master page mapping tables in there, and I just hadn't gotten around to clicking it yet. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and that's going to change my top margin on this page. So when I update my book, it's going to keep index when I come back, and it's also going to assign my my first master. Now, for this particular document, what I want to do is have a side head and 2 columns. So I'm just going to pop back up into the format, coming to customize layout. I'm coming to customize text frame. I want to make sure that I have 2 columns, balance them, and I want my side heads on, and I'll click apply. That looks good. And then I'm going to zoom in so we can see what's happening in here. Okay. These T's are hypertext markers. Remember I had it turned on? So all of my page numbers are hypertext linked. I can jump in from my PDF or now with Control-Alt-Click to the document to see what's happening. But they are blocking the formatting, so I'm going to turn them off for just a few minutes. And of course, that's a view menu text symbols. And what's happening with what was presented here, it's a very short index, is I've got group titles. That's the A, the B, the C, the D for the different groups, the A group, the B group, the C group. And I have the initial formatting that you can see here. This is a 2-level index. Anything that is flush against the left margin, like engine limitations and escape, is a level 1 entry. Anything that's indented, like under escape, we have cabin, launchpad, systems, those are all level 2 entries. This isn't magic. This is the way those markers were put in. When we insert markers, we tell FrameMaker what level we want, and when FrameMaker runs through the document to create an index, it collects all those markers, reads what you said, and produces the index as expected. Okay, so what if I want to change some things? Let's just change 2 quick things on the index. First of all, I don't have any G entries. I have A, B, C, D, E, F. There's no G. There's also no X, Y, Z, and a lot of other letters are missing as well. The default for FrameMaker is to suppress the group titles that don't have any entries, and that's fine, but I'm going to show you how you can change that. And I think it might look better if we had a comma at the end of the text before the page number. And maybe for fun, we'll change the page number color. If you're going to take this to Acrobat, which we are, the color will draw the reader's eye towards the page numbers, which is great for the linking. All these things happen on the reference page. So when I go to the View menu in my index and I click on Reference Pages, I can find the index-specific reference page. It's going to be called the IX. It's this one right here, the IX page. And if I want to add a comma, I go to the separators line. That's what this is, the separators line. And I put a comma in there. When you're new to FrameMaker indexing, these don't look the least bit friendly. The way you figure out what's what is, again, you watch the style names. So as I have my cursor sitting here, I can see it says it's separators. This is what separates the numbers. And remember how I don't have any F entries, or G entries is what I didn't have. The semicolon that you see between the letters is a special character. It says suppress. If I put in a comma space, for example, here, I'm going to have F and G above the F entries. And if I do that here, I put a comma space, that was a period space, comma space, comma space, space. You're going to see those group titles change when I come back. One more thing I'm going to do on the reference pages, just going to change what the numbers look like. I'm going to go to the paragraph designer, font properties, make 2 quick changes. I'm going to change the color to my corporate blue, that one, and I'm going to enable underlining and update the style. So you can see I've made a couple of modifications on the index reference pages. When I go back to the body pages, nothing happens because reference page changes don't take effect until you update your book. It's one of those rules. Update my book. FrameMaker is going to go to the reference pages, read what I just did, and then incorporate that on these pages. And sure enough, it incorporated the commas and it incorporated the color. If you look down here to F and G, you can see it's done those as well. Now, I tried to take a shortcut and change the columns from the body pages. It worked in my test and didn't work here. It really shouldn't work. So basically, you just caught me cheating. I was trying to just do this quickly. But here's what I got to do because I lost my columns. I need to go to this document and go to the, click on the file bar, go to the master pages. And is this the first master? It is. I should have changed the columns here. Really, I should change them for the entire document. I was just trying to be quick about it. So I'm going to go to Format, Customize Layout, Customize Text Frame. Again, I turned the 2 columns on and balanced columns. When I tested it before I recorded, it was great. But now it didn't work. So I've got my columns back. That allows me to go back to the View menu and the body pages, and I'm good. And when I update my book, this time it's going to stick around. So let's go ahead and just hit update and see it. Now, by the way, if you're wondering why I'm choosing customized layout and not margins and columns, it's because when I have custom positions on my running heads, headers, and footers, when you change your margins and columns through the format menu, document, format menu, page layout, column layout, if you do it here, it's going to put the header and footers back in their normal places. And I want to keep my headers and footers where they are. So the way that we get around it is we use customized layout on those frames. Okay. Anyway, that's why I'm doing it. And this shows the updated changes. This is all good. I got caught, but I fixed it, so we're fine. I'm going to go to my book window now and use the Shift key to save all files in book. And now let's talk about the markers that produce this index. You have to put in markers. I explained this to one of my students once, and after I explained it very carefully to the class, he said, "Oh, so FrameMaker just knows what goes in the index?" The answer is no, you've got to tell it. So here's how that works. I'm going to go to the first page of my chapter and just add a few index markers. I'm going to open up my marker box so that it's open and ready to go. And then let's say I want to add these words right here, aircraft engine. If I select those words, they will get typed into the marker box. There are a lot of different kinds of markers that you can be working with. This is specifically indexing, so make sure it says index when you're doing it. And in my index, the level 1 entries have a capital letter, and I want to index aircraft engine as a level 1 entry. I want this to go in my index in the A's and say aircraft engine, comma, space, 1. So all I have to do is make sure that's what it says, and I hit create. When I return to my index, and when I update my book, so it should be right up here, it's going to show up on the A's, and when I update my book, it's going to find it, and it's going to type it into the A's. Then it looks at the reference pages and says, okay, Barb wants a comma and a space, and she wants blue, and she wants underline. It does it all automatically. That's a level 1 entry. This is not hard, but putting in thousands of them takes a long time, but it's not a difficult process. Now, I'm looking at this section over here in the T's. This has second levels. It's got tables animation, table views. It's missing another one of the entries that I need. and it's going to be a second level entry. So here's how that one works. I'm going to go back to the file, and I want to find these words down here on page 1, component tables. I want to index those where I showed you. So what happens when I select them is it just types in exactly what I selected, and I'm going to delete the word tables, arrow in front of it, and type in my level 1 entry, which is a capital T, A, B, L, E, and I'm going to add a colon. The colon in a marker box like this, or an index marker box, is a really important character. It's what differentiates between level 1 and level 2. Anything to the left of the colon is a level 1 entry. Anything to the right of the colon is a level 2 entry. So I want this to show up in my index, alphabetized correctly under table, but in the C's within the sub options. Every time you add a colon, you make a new level. So we have index level 1 and index level 2 in this document. 2-level indexes are probably the most common that I see. I definitely have students that do 3-level indexes. I've had a handful, and I can remember, who they were, that have a 4-level entry, 4-level index. They need 3 colons. It seems to be unlimited. You're welcome to keep adding colons, see how far you can go. For one student, I got to 13 levels. She finally said that's enough. Okay, have I hit create yet? Probably not. Let me hit create. Okay, so I put the marker in, and you can't see my marker because guess what? I turned off my text symbols, but my text symbols are showing you that the markers are in there. Okay, I'm going to go back to my index, and here are the T's. It says animation and views. It's missing my new marker. So I just have to update my book, and FrameMaker is going to go through and find everything that's in there, and it's going to add it right in the right location. So the colon is a separator between levels. Oh, look at that. I made a mistake. That's okay. I need to show how to fix it, so that's fine. So here's what happened. I typed in table, and I need to type in tables. I did that on purpose over here so I could show you how to fix that kind of thing, because guess what? We do it all the time as humans, and clearly I do. But I want to say this. As a human, we can compensate for a typo. We can say, oh, that's what they meant, and we know what's going on. FrameMaker cannot do that. FrameMaker needs a complete match, or it's not going to work. So what I need to do here is hyperlink in. Remember my Control-Alt-Click? I'm going to Control-Alt-Click, and did it bring me to it? Not yet. Control-Alt-Click. There it goes. This should have said tables with an S. Again, with the trackpad. There we go. Tables, plural. Okay, so that's my correction. I'm going to save the marker. I'm going to go back to my index. I'm going to update my index. And now it should work correctly. Yeah, so now it added it correctly. So I won't go ahead and correct this one because you get the idea. My intention was to hyperlink in and remove that S, and you'd see that they would combine together. You expect to find typos when you create an index because of all the typing that happens, but they're easy to fix. You hyperlink in and fix them. And with that, I'm going to go to a fit page in window view. I just did it in my book window, so I'm going to make them a little bit bigger. Do you know this little trick? If your cursor is active in the book window and you're zooming in and out, you zoom in on, am I in there? Here I am. When you zoom in and out, you can zoom in the book window. There it goes. Most of my students find that out by accident, and I just did it by accident as well. I wasn't trying to do it on purpose, although I did intend to tell you that. So if you're in the document window, the plus and minus are going to zoom you in and out in the document. If you're in the book window, it's going to make that list larger and smaller. For those of us who are getting older and need to see things better, that's a little tip for you to know about. Okay, I am done with the index, and so I'm going to go to my book window, and I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I want to save all files in book. And I do need to just address the page numbers for a second. If you look at my book window with these new files added, I've now got some problems going on. This first chapter is set to Arabic. That should be Roman. This one should continue from that one, and this one should continue from here. So once I add chapters to my book window, I do need to take a moment and just make sure things are good. So I'm going to very quickly pop into numbering and just tell the page numbers in the table of contents that they should be Roman and set. And then I'm going to go to my legal file, and I'm going to tell my legal file that it needs to increment from the previous chapter in the book. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in Roman numerals and set. And then finally, I'm going to go to my index, and I'm going to tell my index numbering to continue from the previous chapter and set. And when I go to my book window and click Shift Click, you can see that my numbering now is going to go I through IV, comma 1 through 21. So I've got my front matter consecutively numbering with lowercase Roman. The body of my book is numbering with Arabic numerals. I'm going to hold the Shift key and go to the File menu and save all files in book. Okay. So that was how to make a book, how to work with the book window. You can see the two generated files that stand out because they have the black and orange color. We've talked about making a table of contents and an index. So all I want to do now is just wrap up by talking about how to create a PDF. PDFs are created more than anything else with my FrameMaker students. That's always their focal point when they come to class. How do I make a good PDF? And so let me just run through a couple things on that. In the book window, I'm going to take this whole book and make it into a PDF. I could also do it for a single file if I were in the file. But in my book window, I'm clicking. I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to choose Save as PDF. Save as PDF. Now, this command has been here for a long time, just like this. I'm going to go ahead and just hit Save and talk while it's creating it. So I'll hit Save. But in earlier versions of FrameMaker, it would stop and say, well, what do you want from this PDF? Which job option do you want? What page do you want to open up on? It asks you questions about what you wanted to get. And in more current versions of FrameMaker, and this is a great thing, the whole PDF export engine has been refined and updated, and it's moved those controls elsewhere. So if you're used to saving as a PDF, you can still do that. But what's happening is it's using the defaults from the last time you made a PDF, which might be right and they might not. Let me show you what I got, and then I'll explain what that means. When I have finished with my PDF, I can view it, and I have Acrobat loaded, so it should open up, and here's my file. I did want to talk about hyperlinks, so since I'm here, all my hyperlinks work. If I click, I'm going to hyperlink in. Here's my cross-reference. I'm going to hyperlink. Here's my NASA link. This is going to open up this in a website, this URL in a website. So there it is. I'm going to close it. Let me pop to the end of the document. That button. Here's my index, and I can hyperlink back in again. So you can see everything I talked about is working and is here. Also notice that I do have bookmarks on the left. I've got 3 levels of bookmarks. My top level is my heading 0, second level is heading 1, and then heading level 3. Just notice that that's all here as a default. I'm going to close this and return to FrameMaker. So when you need to change things because the default you got wasn't what you wanted, know that you can still go up to, book window, you can still go up to the Format menu and choose Document, and you can choose PDF Setup. This is where you set your bookmarks up. My bookmarks were turned on, and it was set to bring in those 3-level bookmarks. This is a template that I got from the templates that come with FrameMaker. These were already enabled. I didn't have to turn them on. But I could certainly come over here and I could add more things to the bookmark list, or I could decide I don't want these. If I take heading 2 away, just by double-clicking it, it goes over, and it wouldn't be included if I were to make another PDF. If I bring it back, it comes in, but it comes in as a top level, because see how it's against the left edge? I can adjust my bookmark levels here. This is why they were indented in that bookmark list. It's all happening right in here. So that's good to know. This is the same as it has been forever. But the new component that you may have missed if you haven't been making PDFs in any current versions is that we now have a Publish pod. This pod is in the File menu under Publish. And if I want to modify the PDF output, what I can do is pick PDF here and then come down to the settings file, and I can edit that settings file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Edit, and I can decide how I want to export. Do I want high quality print? Do I want smallest file size? Do I want the PDFX options? On my Rocky Mountain Training blog, I do have instructions on how to add the missing presets. There are other presets that come with the software. PDFX4, for example, is not in this list, but you have it. It's on your hard drive. My blog will tell you where to go to locate that and copy it to the folder, and then you'll see it in here. You can control what page it opens on, what the zoom is, the layout. You get the idea. Now, I'm not going to make any changes right now, but let's say I change several things in here. I can save the changes, or I can save as and give this a new name, so I have multiple choices for exporting. I'm just going to cancel for the moment. But once I've changed the settings file, I can then make a PDF from here because I'm already here. I can just say, I want a PDF. And this button right here lets me, actually, I'm in a document. I want to be in the book, so let me click on book. Does it know I'm in the book? Doesn't think I am. Anyway, I can make it from here. I can generate the PDF from here. Or I can just go back to save as PDF. It's going to use whatever my last settings were. I'm going to hit done there. And then I can get into this in another webinar, but you also have access to all sorts of other formats that you can export to. Responsive HTML5, mobile apps, EPUBs. The button that's to the right of the Generate Selected Output button is Generate Multiple Outputs. If I click that, I can figure out which ones I want to export and do it all at once. So that's pretty cool as well. Beyond today, because we're running out of time. Now, I was expecting this to have showed me the book, but I guess I had to pick the book from here. So that may have been my fault that I didn't pick the book. But now if I were to pick PDF and book and this button, this would be the exact same thing as me going back over into the File menu and choosing Save Book or Save as PDF. It's going to use the settings from here. Either one is appropriate. I'm going to go ahead and just export it now because I can see I have my book. And that's a lot of information that I've covered once again in the 1-hour webinar. This is all recorded, so of course you can come back and you can listen to it as many times as you want. You can stop and pause and rewind. You're also welcome to ask questions. You can reach out to me and ask me questions. That's completely fine. I do have training classes you're welcome to sign up for. I've got a 2-day intro and a 2-day advance on FrameMaker. I cover this sort of thing, but at a much more reasonable pace. And you follow along with me. It's hands-on. Okay, so here are the bookmarks again, just so you could see since I talked about them. Here's the file. Okay, so I am done for now. I wish you all the best, and hopefully I'll see you again in a future webinar. Thanks, everybody.